to the wonderful technological wonders of Zoom, Ariana was able to come visit us, which provides the perfect transition to our next panel, which is Advancements in Technology, Women Innovating Sport Through Tech. So obviously this whole day is all about lifting women up in sports and positioning them to thrive in whatever aspect of the industry they're in. One of the many areas where there's room for growth is technology. And there's lots of opportunity to make women's market share in the space much more appreciable. On a grander scale, the sports tech industry is supposed to become a $30 billion industry by 2034. So lots of possibility when it comes to range, scope, diversity of the sector. We know more broadly that despite some amazing organizations that you may have heard of, like Girls Who Code and MasterCard's wonderful STEM program, Girls for Tech here in the States, when you look at the diversity numbers in Silicon Valley and regions that are supportive of tech, the numbers are disappointing, to be kind. So that's what this panel is all about. So how can we in this room supercharge this movement, be agents for change? And we're going to do that by shining a light on pioneers in the sports tech industry who are not only doing great things with product and innovation, but lifting women up and bringing them along the way. This panel, we have Mary Lou McFarland, who is co-founder and CEO of Women in Sports Technology, Haley Price, head of North America Sports Sponsorships at Tata CS, Sandra Lopez, who is very largely responsible for me standing here in front of you today. She is a former C-suite goddess at Intel and Microsoft, tech executive and current deputy chair of SIGA, the America Advisory Board. Kelly Sullivan, Director of Data Products for Breakaway Data, and moderating this panel will be Susan Warner, Talent and Community Engagement, founder of Girls for Tech at MasterCard. And we welcome them all in. Ladies.
Remind me to tell you something. Where do they want us to sit?
It's in the crowd. All right, being short, wearing a dress, and a stool.
I did the
Perfect.
same thing.
I know. Should have wrote remember. Come on, excuse me. All right.
We can figure this out.
Thank you for having us. Really appreciate this. Susan Warner, and I'm the founder of Girls for Tech. Not as very athletic as all my panelists here in my childhood, but I am a huge advocate of STEM and pushing girls into this space and giving them opportunity. We say at MasterCard, you know, talent is equal, opportunity is not. And it definitely translates the same in sports technology. So I'm with this amazing panel. Thank you for joining me. We're going to make this a little interactive, and I know my video crew is going to be like, but we have a couple of questions to ask you, so I want to get this right. So how many in this room, and I realize this is probably a heavily rotated room, but how many participated in sports beyond the age of 12? I just have I told you it was kind of heavily rotated. And for those of you who stayed in sports beyond the age of 12, what values did you gain? Just real quick, and I'll shout it out, David, so you don't need a microphone.
Grit. Confidence.
Grit, confidence. What?
Teamwork.
Teamwork, tenacity. All right, and for those of us who didn't pursue sports beyond the age of 12, do you want to raise your hand? All right. And what intimidated you, or what held you back? What were you thinking about?
I grew up in a country where women were practicing sports. So.
Yeah. Latoya? Yeah.
Hi. I just grew up in an artsy community, so I did violin, dance, ballet, tap.
Yeah. I'd say that there are women who are intimidated. You know, lack of confidence may be one of the reasons why. We're certainly seeing that in the STEM industry. You know, 1 in 5 men will pursue a STEM career. 1 in 20 will pursue, 1 in 20 women will pursue a STEM career. So there is a difference. So today we're all about sports technology, talking about it. And when we talk about sports technology, I just want to mention it's athlete, team, and coach performance. It's fan engagement. It's venue and event innovation. It's digital media. It's wearable sports. It's business of sports. It's esports and fantasy sports. So that's what we're talking about and how we can encourage girls to pursue this very lucrative, exciting career. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. We talked earlier in the day about girls who do pursue sports and how there is a correlation between women CEOs and more women in corporate leadership have pursued sports beyond the age of 12. So what can we do more to encourage, first, before we get to sports technology, what can we do more to encourage girls to pursue this sports?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can see here with everyone's response that sports are so impactful for a variety of reasons. And I think just a small way that changing the narrative, which I think is not universal, but at times becomes, for young women, that sports is a good way to move your body or get active, which is obviously true. But the powers of sports of just like learning about teamwork and learning how to show up and find your purpose is like well beyond and like way, larger in some ways. So I think switching that narrative could be really powerful for a lot of young women. I don't think that's the only thing, but I think that could be a part of it to keep young girls playing sports longer.
You want to answer?
I think it really comes down to funding and access, right? Because if you're not funding these programs for young girls to get into sports at an early age, I mean, I see it in my town, right? Some sports are better funded than others, and that's where you get more kids to show up. So I think, and then that also creates access.
True.
Having a 12-year-old daughter, she just doesn't see women in sports. She watches a lot of media, whether it's streaming and or on TV, and so she doesn't see herself. So she doesn't see that that's an opportunity for her in terms of long-term success. Ironically, it's great to see new social media platforms, whether you're pro or against it, TikTok, where they're highlighting stories about, and she showed it to me, which is super cute, a woman who disguised herself as a man to go play football and outperformed the guys. And so it's both media and also saying that girls can play sports too. And I do believe that we made some progress last year with individuals like Serena, who's a GOAT. But I do believe that we have systemic issues that exist. And let's just start with the media. If I can see her, I can be her.
Yep. Yeah. And I would add everything to what you said is role models. The opportunity for a girl to see a girl, young girls tend to really emulate just that superstar 3 or 4 years older than them. So if they can see the girls playing sports in their high school years and on into college, that will often really encourage them to keep going because they want to be just like that person who's their role model.
Yeah.
To your point, see it to be it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we know at MasterCard, if there is 50-50 representation to create a product or service, to create the next gen technology, we know if it's 50-50, and we're not there yet, but we're working hard to get there, we know we're going to create a better product and service because everyone's at the table giving voice to what that product or experience should be. So what are you doing in your space to be more inclusive and bringing women in, getting them in the door?
Well, I think at TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, we're a massive IT consulting company and technology company, and we have 600,000 employees across the globe. So we're talking about diversity at scale, right? So we really believe in diversity by design and that everyone should be a champion of equity from the top down. Now that's a lot of pretty words, right? What does that actually mean in action? It really means looking at the numbers, right? So we're closing in at 40% women workforce, and that's good, but that's not good enough, right? So I think we just need to keep pushing on that, and we have strategic partnerships with Million Women Mentors. Through that, we were a founding partner, and we have a 1 million active women mentorship relationships, and then really looking at how we can make the difference on like a smaller level, just in the daily actions, right? So maybe it's just something as simple as inviting someone new to your team, bringing in different voices, looking at your hiring practices, and I think it's something we challenge ourselves to do every day.
Yeah.
I can go. I'm just a vocal advocate for equality and representation, and so oftentimes I'm called the AOC of tech. I think that's a compliment. But I do believe that the stats are really concerning, and I think COVID, we went backwards. And so Joanna Coles, who's the editor of, who was a former editor of Cosmopolitan, gave me this advice one day, is like, maybe you can't change within, but you can change on the outside. And if I look at the 1%, the board of directors, the C-suite, we need to get diversity there, and so actively challenging publicly traded companies that you need to see complete diversity. So you need to see Blacks, Latinos, people with disabilities, people with mental health issues, so that it can actually trickle down throughout the entire organization. So actively working and trying to do change within the BOD and C-suite.
That's great. That's great. And what I would say with Women in Sports Tech, so our entire organization was built around driving growth opportunities for women at all career stages, but also employers to allow them to walk the walk. And we develop and deliver innovative programs that provide significant, tangible results for employers. So we have the WIS Fellowship Program, which gives college, grad, and PhD students experience working in the industry. They get a very carefully paired mentor and amazing workshops, and then a community, courage, confidence, and community going forward. We also have the single source for diverse hiring. It's the WIS Network. So this is a career hub for all women, people of color, LGBTQ, veterans, disabled people. Anyone who's not currently included in our sports tech industry has found amazing dream jobs. They get connected to employers who are looking to diversify their workforces. And at the end of the day, what WIST really does is solve for that struggle to diversify talent pipelines. We've expanded from Change the Ratio to include Culture Matters, because it's also really important to have an inclusive culture. Once you have the people there and you create more diversity, how do you have everyone feel like they belong?
Absolutely. Now, girls will drop out of STEM, around that in the U.S., the middle school age, while they will score the same at the third grade level as boys. There is a significant drop-off, and there are many reasons, and it's been heavily researched, but it is lack of confidence, lack of role models, lack of parents and teachers being comfortable with the subject, and we're seeing the same thing with girls in sports. So from 12 years old to the time they can join your beautiful internship program, mentorship program, there's 6 years there that we're missing and that the drop-off is occurring. What can we do that's a scary place to me.
Well, Susan, you have to give yourself credit, because you're doing so much amazing work with Girls for Tech. Girls 8 to 16, I've loved learning about your programs. Really introduce them to careers and to areas of STEM that they may not know lead to super exciting careers. So I think what you're doing is significant. And then we are developing content that would be for the high school age and older of your cohort to show them what does a cool career in sports tech look like. We have DJ Heat, who's the Washington Mystics and Washington Wizards DJ. She does the music at every one of these basketball, NBA, and WNBA events. So I think what you're doing, your programs are certainly paving the way, and the rest of us can hopefully take them from what you're doing into their careers and support them with their next step.
I did not pay Mary Lou to say that. Just want you to know.
It's
Thank you
pretty
very
phenomenal.
much. Thank you.
3 million girls so far?
3.7, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right. It is exposure. It's again, that opportunity. It's reaching the hand out, getting the girls in the door. Kelly, you were talking about when you were applying into this industry, you didn't see a lot of people who look like you. Tell us a little bit about you. I know you're a math and computer science major. She is STEM. And you're sports technology. Just give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I played collegiate soccer, which was awesome and a super big joy for me. And I studied math and comp sci, but left college not really knowing ways to stay in sport. I thought I probably was gonna have to coach, which is awesome, but I didn't really see that maybe for myself. And so with some research and going through things, I did find that there was some really amazing sports tech careers out there. But I think the thing I found, and I really tried not to do, but I see other people doing it, I think both in tech and in sports, and it's kind of a double whammy when you're in sports tech, is I think as a woman, you maybe feel the need to self-select out. Maybe I don't love sports enough, or maybe I'm not as good, of a coder or whatever it is to be in this field. And I just, knew at the end of the day, with my experience, I thought I really could do a good job in sports tech. And because I had male allies at the company I'm at now that lifted me up and saw the potential in me, I'm really enjoying what I do with Breakaway, and I'm in the sports tech field. And yeah, I'm on a lot of calls, and it's a lot of teams, and all of the, the people representing or the team I'm on a call with are men, and that's tough. I have allies in my company that coach me through it. And I'm just really glad I didn't self-select out, whether it was the engineering side or the sports side. I said, I can do this. And I think encouraging more women to do so, and then also having male allies who are willing to bring us in, is just so important for our field to grow with inclusion and more women, for sure, in the sports tech field. So.
That's the grit that someone was talking about that you get in sports.
Yeah.
So, all right, there's a lot of STEM in sports. So there's aerodynamics, physics, behavioral biometrics. There's so much. I could create a curriculum on just this. Wait, I did. But tell us about the cool, innovating things that you guys are doing in your field. Because we want girls to hear about this. Like, I can do this.
Well, there's an interesting product I'm super excited about as a runner. It's called NICS Biosensors. You all know this, founded by Meredith Cass. One of the things I'm really excited about is all the startups that are coming up, and investors are finally funding them. And they're literally innovating biometrics and the way that we can train and recover. There's also Kelly Proct, who created NVenue, which is predictive analytics that's being used in live MLB games now. She's another female founder that's super inspiring.
That's amazing. So when a girl is saying, what am I doing in math? Well, there's a reason right there. Physics. What else? What other?
Well, I'm really excited about where we're going with digital twin technology, right? So a digital twin is a digital representation of a real life physical object, process, or system, right? And so when you create something like that for an athlete, right, the digital twin of yourself. Now, we're not quite there yet, but we are seeing digital twins of knees and hearts and nasal passages, right? And you start to run these simulations and drive performance and really understand the results of where the body can go. I think where this brings it back to gender, right, and how it builds equity and access is that we don't have to rely on faulty science and bad data from the past 20 years where they've just been studying men, right? Because we were too complicated, AKA different, right? So we can actually see digital twins of these athletes and really customize the performance analysis to them.
Such a critical reason to have women in sports technology, to govern that. Wow, that's pretty incredible. So tell me, guys, and I'm going to copy a question before in the panel, just who's your role model? Like, how did you get here, and who inspired you? Sandra?
I could start. To be honest, it was my father. So my father was a former horse jockey, and he taught me many of the traits that made me successful today in passion, hard work, and as a woman and as a Latina, I always tell people I recognize that every single time I enter a room, I have to work harder, spend a lot of time preparing, more so than a man, and I'm just going to be judged differently. And so I really took the traits that my father gave me and instilled in me in terms of you pursue your passion, you're going to fall, and I've fallen a couple times in corporate America, and you get up. And those are the greatest lessons. And I always tell people, like, I go back to that moment in time that I went from a large team to a team of one. And if that didn't happen, I would not be where I am today. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's great. All right, who else?
I mean, as a soccer gal, I think when it comes to leadership, which is a big part of this summit, Abby Wambach was a personal leader like I always looked up to. And one of the big things I saw, actually recently it's not that recently, but when I consumed it was just, her idea of thanking the people, pointing to those that are supporting you, and then leading from the sidelines and learning how to do that really well, coming into a startup where, I was lowest on the totem pole and trying to make an impact, from maybe the sidelines at times, I think is super important and a really important lesson in leadership that I'm just, really glad that there's great role models out there to get that from, so.
My role models in the room, I think Michelle Taylor. I honestly wouldn't be here without her. I've been working on and off with Michelle for 15 years, way back when I used to work at New York Roadrunners. She was my boss, and now she's my boss at Tata Consultancy Services, and she's really a leader by example, right? Her presence, or the way she has really blazed the path in sport, I'm going to try not to choke up, but it's really an inspiration to all of us at TCS. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would like to give a shout out to my daughters as I think about it, because my young girls have really driven so many of my own career decisions. Their tenacity, their confidence, their natural confidence and courage is something I've wanted to foster along the way. I coached them when they were young and kept their joy for sports alive, and they played in college and have gone on to be pretty awesome adults. And I think that if I think back to what drives me, they are very much my inspiration, like every day.
So you guys are going to make me cry. All right. And so fast forward, we're 20 years from now. We're celebrating my 40th birthday. Don't laugh. What does the sports technology industry look like? Like, we get to create it right now over the next 20 years. So you guys have got the crystal ball, and you're going to tell us. It's breaking news here. So go ahead, whoever wants to start.
Well, we'll have over 600 fellows out into this industry. So we have our WIS fellows get experience every summer, and then they stay with us and end up working oftentimes for where they interned. But there will be many, many women in leadership positions across all disciplines. So when we say sports tech, we define it very broadly to include any role in the sports business, to your point. So it could be marketing analytics, it could be data science for your HR team, So it's going to be a very different world. And just seeing MIT Sloan Sports Conference, which I was in Boston last week, from 6 years ago to today, it is remarkable how well the work is working. This is not magic. We are literally offering opportunities that drive the change that we want to see. So every day, as we said, this is for the girls. This is for the women who will come after us. And it's a very bright future.
I could say we're following the puck. Where's the future consumer? It's going to be Latino. The average age is 17. The average non-Latino age is 61. We are the 5th largest economy in the world. We spend over $1.7 trillion. The Latino male is 95% sports fan. So we are actively looking to invest in sports-based companies that are Latino founded, so that we could make sure that organization, that cohort, is better served, both from a fan, both from an athlete, and from an experience perspective.
Wow. On the technology front, I'm really excited to see where data science goes. So we talked about digital twin and how that's going to push performance analysis, but as we start to really understand how women athletes perform, right, looking at hormones, right? I don't know if anyone read that fascinating article in the New York Times Magazine about menopause and how we've been gaslit, right? Fascinating article, but understanding each phase of a woman's life and how that plays into athlete performance, right? That's a whole field that hasn't been studied. So in 20 years from now, that's going to be a game changer. Where we're going with 3D printing and full customization, so you'll be able to walk into a store and just have a 3D printed garments exactly to your needs, right? And that's already happening in putters for golf. It's happening for climbing shoes. What's exciting about that is it doesn't just equal the playing field there, but it's more sustainable. You're using less product, and it's all customized directly to that person. And I think the last thing, which is just an ever-evolving landscape day by day, is Web3, right? That's going to be the ultimate disruptor in the space, because it's going to eliminate barriers for ownership for teams and create a whole new white space there.
Yeah, I would just kind of add to one kind of piece Haley talked about with just being able to understand performance, especially for women. A lot of that takes data points and stuff to power, AI, and Breakaway Data is very committed to giving athletes their data back, but also then just having it in a way that then can be used to help the next generation of athletes catch injuries sooner, learn better ways to perform, during periods and all of that stuff. And so I think that's really big for us. We know the power of AI and all those things, but that really comes down to data and having that data and taking the time to track it down and aggregate it. And we're really committed to doing that. And I think it's really going to reap benefits 20 years down the road with all the data we collect.
I'd just like to add, I heard what's super exciting in our industry is that sports tech companies are realizing that women are not small men. Isn't that great? And there are data platforms now being developed that incorporate the different cycles that women go through with hormones and everything else into their performance training. We should not be training the exact way that men train. Our bodies are very different. Wild AI is a phenomenal product. If you all know Helene Guillaume, she's really leading the way, I think, in terms of this an app that's private. The data's private, which is also very, very important. Don't get Sandra, we won't get started on that right now. There's a lot of interesting questions around the privacy of data. But as long as that is secure, it is a phenomenal way for coaches and trainers to be able to adapt the way that they're training to maybe avoid injury, to come back from injury more safely. So it's exciting. That frontier is one of my most exciting things I'm most excited about.
And yet another quote, women are not small men, that we can take away. That's really good. All right. Well, any questions from the audience? I know we're, oh, go ahead. With two ladies in red.
Hi. So I do a lot of work with tech companies, and I've seen the impact.
Oh, sorry. Just, yeah.
I do a lot of work with tech companies, Facebook, Instagram, Google, Twitter, and I've watched what happens when allyships are formed, when the male engineers all of a sudden understand the barriers to entry for women. And it's something that needs to be experienced. What have you all found effective in gaining allies, in turning that understanding on in those organizations?
I would share that we do what we call fireside chats. Culture matters, and we do them for all of our partners. We have 30 corporate partners, and we have this conversation that really demystifies DEI. We give specific business reasons why diverse teams are more successful. We also give specific steps to take. If you're a manager of a team that is not fully diverse, maybe you have a lonely only on your team. So how do you make everyone feel like they belong? So again, tangible steps people can take to recognize their biases, to break them, because we all have them. So I think our fireside chats have been very well received by our partners, and that's a nice, informal, we lead with love. None of us have got it figured out. We're always learning, and as long as we approach it that way, it's the way that we're all going to get better.
My point of view is allies build allies. So oftentimes it's the men and the individuals, like those in the room, Emmanuel, Dan back there, that talk to other men and talk about how they've seen a woman that they chose to mentor or a woman that they chose to sponsor rise through the ranks. And so for Women's History Month, every day I identify one person that I want to thank for where I am today. And I went back to this gentleman, Eli Goodrich. I came to New York without a job back in the dot-com bust. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see, and he placed a bet on me. And so day 3 of Women's History Month, I picked up the phone. I haven't spoken to him in like 3 years, and I gave him that feedback. And he was like, you did it yourself. I'm like, no, you had to open up that door so that I could be there, so thank you. And continue to do your allyships, because it makes a change in the world. So thank you to the men in the room for supporting us.
I feel like to build allyship, we've done a lot of education, but I don't feel like the education should solely fall on us, because that's yet another task, right? We talked about the tasks sometimes fall onto women accidentally, right? Whether it's party planning, administrative tasks, but sometimes it's the DEI task force suddenly is now in our bailiwick. So I think the education part's important, but then what we've seen is those men allies actually doing the job for us, right? And then we've started to see that next level at TCS, where they're sending us the articles and they're pointing it out to other groups and they're bringing the knowledge to other people, and that's been really exciting to see them really step into that. And so we don't have to fight those battles ourselves anymore.
Great. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think they did a great job. I love the male allies. They're awesome.
Really great answers. I will tell you, with Girls for Tech, where our employees will be like, well, can our male employees be the instructors as well? And we say, absolutely. Everyone should be a champion of girls pursuing technology. So yeah, allyship, I like mentorship, sponsorship, all three are very important. All right, and my friend, also in red, you had a question.
Thank you. Thank you. My question is very simple, I think. How do you stay motivated in two fields that are mainly male-dominated, and how do you sustain yourselves? Because I think that's pretty important.
It's an injustice. It's an injustice that 50% of the population is not represented. It's an injustice that, I guess, in the Black community, 12% is not represented. 23% of the population is not represented in C-suite board seats. So every day, that's my fight. And oftentimes, I'm asked to quiet down, and I'm like, no, I'm going to roar to drive the change. And at times, it can cost you your life. So you just have to have conviction to drive that change and leverage that. What I learned when I was a little girl playing sports, never give up, and I'm here to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I would add to that, I feel that in my heart and soul, everything that you said, but I've also I've also found along the way the importance of trying to give the benefit of the doubt, like if I'm working with a man, as I often have, who truly may not be enlightened yet. He may not be thinking about the way that he's rolling or the way that he's interviewing with all homogenous people, interviewing diverse people. Like, they're just specific things they may not know yet. And for me, I just feel it's really important to provide tangible solutions to the problems because they are real problems. But if we can provide programs that provide these results for the employers, that for me feels like positive change.
And some people don't want to change, and I think we have to acknowledge that. Very strong points of view, and we talk about diversity of thought, and some individuals don't believe that you should have 50%, and that's okay. But our responsibility is, let's make it easier for when you go into corporate America or whatever you choose. You won't have to get as many bruises as some of us had to, or when Daisy, who's about to graduate from Yale, has the opportunity to go into corporate. We just made it slightly easier, and that's how we're going to drive change.
Humor's helpful.
Yeah.
Unless you're being harmed physically, if you can find a way, this is where we coach our young women, to assume maybe this person is insecure, maybe they are not enlightened, as I mentioned. But if you're learning and growing and you just look to your next step, because what I say is the men may not be on the train today, and I say men with love in my heart. I'm married to a fabulous white man. But it's important to know that if you're not on the train today, you will be on this train because no one's going to want to work for you. And the data shows that.
I would just add, I think it really plays well into what you both said, is just being curious and not judgmental, really trying to understand, but also finding the small wins, right? Just sometimes the problem feels so big and it's overwhelming, but then finding the small wins and celebrating them together. I think that's what we try to focus on.
Community.
Yeah, I think the community piece is huge. I mean, I think even being here today, right? It's me talking to my, company, I really got to go to these things. I got to meet more women in sports and tech, and them supporting that and then growing that network is huge, and committing to that as companies, I think, is really important. Because community, I mean, that's what it is. And I do believe, though, that when I hop on a call and I see those people, that I just tell myself they know I should be here and I know I should be here. If they think anything else, then that is not my problem. That's theirs a little bit. So there's a little bit of that too, maybe.
That's awesome. That's the confidence that sports brings. That's awesome. All right. Well, we have another minute. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
As someone that's not hiring and not a C-level, and someone that's not kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, but someone kind of in the middle, white, male, speaking of myself, what action items on a daily basis can you go about to help promote that in a very Zoom cultured world? how do you create, more community and camaraderie, or make that process easier for women, kind of when you are so isolated, but also when you don't have decision-making powers?
If I could, that's a great question. So I would say make sure that voices are heard. So a perfect example is a Zoom call, right? And lots of people. I feel like there's usually a few folks that dominate, right? So find those people who aren't maybe finding the opportunity, or maybe they're intimidated, and give them the opportunity to share their voice.
That happens in meetings too,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
where a woman will say an idea and then a man will repeat it and they'll be like, hey, Bob, that was a great idea. So if you see that, say, wait, Kelly said that, or Haley said that. Just that being that champion is just in quiet actions too.
Then I have a challenge for you. If you're ever on panels and you do not see a woman, like if you go to the sports conference, because mostly I see a sea of white men in blue suits, you should not participate in that panel until you see diversity on that panel. And so that's something that's easy. And by having those conversations with the conference planners and the programming, you can drive change.
There's an interesting way to look at inclusivity, diversity, and inclusivity. Diversity is getting an invitation to the party. Inclusivity is making sure everyone's having fun at the party.
That's right. That's right. Well, what a great note to end on. Thank you very much. So, thank you, my ladies.
Wonderful panel. Kelly and Mary Lou brought something up that, as we tie a bow on this session, is worth just taking another moment to talk about. Our reality is, and I'm reiterating what they said, we are all aligned in this room. We in this room are all aligned with you who are watching and participating across the world. Not everybody feels the same way. And it's very easy, as those of us who live our lives with such conviction and such commitment to lifting women up, to say, what's wrong with you? It's not a question we need to ask. Why? Because it's not our problem. And we want to make it our problem sometimes. We want to take it personally. There are some people whose minds we cannot change, and you know what? That's okay. Because we only have so much energy in the day, and for all the things in life we can't control, what we can control is how we spend our energy. So rather than being all tied in knots about those who don't want to come along for the journey, have compassion and empathy for whatever it is that they feel and their unwillingness to grow and evolve, and focus your energy in all the right places, because you'll be much happier if you do.